Good evening. I'd like to call to order the meeting of September 1st for the City of Calabasas Environmental Commission. This meeting is being conducted using Zoom teleconferencing and is available for the live stream on the city's CTV Channel 3 or online at cityofcalabasas.com. We'll move to our call of order for attendance, and I will say your name and you can say present. Philip Cardona.
Present.
Martha Fritz. Absent. Whitney Schwartz. Not present. Julie Shai-Sobel. Not present. Zachary Rossoff.
Here.
Jessica Cohen.
Present.
And Beth Jagtiani. Present. May I have a motion to, let's do the pledge actually. Philip, can you lead us in the pledge, please?
Happy to do so. Stand up. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Philip. Okay, can I have a motion to approve the agenda? But we can't do that with not enough members, correct, Alex?
That is correct, yes. But we can proceed to the next item.
The approval of the minutes we can't do either. So reading the mission statement, so Alex, I know we're on, but Whitney is saying her link is not working. Can you resend it? Or can someone in the city?
Tony, would you please
I'll do it.
send the link?
Yes, I'll do it.
Thank you. So the mission statement, Jessica, do you have it with you? Would you like to read that? You comfortable doing that?
Sure, let me just go to it really quickly.
Okay, sorry to put you on the spot. I had asked Whitney, but she wasn't here, and I want to include you.
Actually, I don't.
No worries. I'm sorry to do that. Okay, maybe I'll read it. I'll go ahead and just read it. So the mission of the Environmental Commission of the City of Calabasas is to advise the City Council regarding the stewardship of our environment as it affects the character of the community and quality of its residents. We strive to balance those elements that influence the degree to which our community sustains its social, economic, and physical environment while maintaining and enhancing our natural and cultural resources. So now we're going to move on to the oral communication and public comment. I don't know if we have any, maybe we do.
We don't have any requests for
I
public
saw just
comment.
11 people. Okay, well, I'll still read it, correct, Alex?
No, you don't have to read it.
Don't
You
have
can
to.
proceed to item number 1.
Okay. So item number 1 is commissioner comment. Can you please raise your hand, commissioners, if you have any comments you'd like to make? All right, we'll do Philip and then Zachary. Philip, please go ahead.
Just would like to welcome Jessica as a new student member along with Zachary. We're excited to have you. Or I'm excited to have you. I haven't spoken with the rest of the commissioners, but by vote, I'm sure they're excited to have you as well. You know, it's a great opportunity to get engaged. I'm the newest commissioner on the committee. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask me, and I'm sure I can help guide you, but we're glad you're part of the committee, and you know, Zach's been a great influence as well. So I know to kind of lend a helping hand if you have any questions, but you know, we're just really excited to have you part of the group. So thank you.
By the way, Commissioner Fritz just joined the meeting.
Welcome, Martha. We'll wait till we see you. Philip, were you done with your commissioner comment?
I am, thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to Zachary while we figure out Martha.
Well, I hope you all had a nice summer. This summer, I took an environmental science class at Moore Park College. It's actually a really interesting course. I mean, you guys can even take a course at Moore Park College. It was taught by Professor Brian Swartz, and he really taught it well, in which he taught about the Earth's processes first, and then he taught about how we are affecting the processes. through like, climate change and pollution, stuff like that. Also I'm part of the climate action leadership program through LVSD. I just wanted to provide you with an update on that. We're currently working on the website and and populating our Instagram. So if you guys want to follow, it's called calp.lvusd on Instagram. And then for Roots and Shoots at Calabasas High School, I'm the president this year, and we actually have some really good news. So I reached out to Miss Julie Pescetto, who's the director of like maintenance and like other work at LVSD, about owl boxes in particular. And she told me that Calabasas High School does use rodenticides. However, if we install an owl box, Calabasas High School will remove all of the rodenticides on campus. So I think that's a pretty good victory for the commission and for Roots and Shoots. And I'm excited to see what we get done this year, especially having to do with rodenticides. So thank you.
Thanks, Zachary. That's awesome. I want to welcome you too, Jessica. I'm excited for this year. I'm sorry it's starting this way and not in person, but it is really a good group of people, and welcome. And I will do my information during the subcommittee report because that's pretty much all I have to share.
Just make sure
So,
Martha hears us. Martha, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We do,
yes,
yes.
and
Well, I can't understand why you can't see me, but I guess one of my settings is off. So I've been looking to see if I can change that, and I'll continue to do that. But that's okay. So I'd like to also welcome Vivian and Diana, and I'm happy to be here. I'm sorry we're not meeting in person, and I look forward to hearing more about climate tonight.
Thank you, Martha.
Beth, if you want, you can go back to approval of agenda and approval of the minutes.
okay, now that we
have the quorum.
Martha here, should I do roll call again for Martha, or it's noted
No,
already?
I announced that Martha has finished.
Perfect. Okay. So may I have a motion to approve the agenda for tonight?
I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. So moved. Whitney is now here. Welcome, Whitney. Okay. And now I would like to make a motion to approve the minutes from our June 23rd meeting.
I approve those minutes.
We need to have
I'll
somebody
second the
second
motion.
it first.
Perfect.
Okay.
Did anyone second?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor of the minutes from
Can you
June?
hear me?
Aye.
We can hear you. Welcome,
Aye.
Whitney.
Got it.
Hi, Whitney.
Mhm.
So we're voting on the approving the minutes from the 23rd.
I approve the minutes.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so moved. Now moving back to commissioner comment. Now that you're here, Whitney, would you like to add anything for your commissioner's comment?
I did go to the webinar that the city sent about the roadmap to LA sustainability. Did anybody else? Is it just the four of us?
No, we have our two guest speakers and then our two student commissioners, Philip, Martha, and myself and Alex.
Okay, so yeah, so I went to the city sent a link for a webinar for LA's sustainability roadmap. Is very interesting. And I encourage anybody to go check out I think it was through LA County. I don't have my notes. I have to go reach for my notes, but anyone's interested, check it out. It was through the city link. Go ahead.
I was gonna say you have 10 minutes if you want to tell us some of your favorite parts from it or any highlights.
Oh, well, let me see if I could get, 1 second.
Okay,
While Whitney's doing that, I do have a comment today.
great.
Should I go now or?
Do you want Martha to go first, Whitney?
Yeah, let Martha go first.
Hi, can you still hear me clearly?
Yes, we do.
Yes.
Today, I wanted to take a moment to celebrate and to thank someone very special who is my father, because my father taught me about how to preserve farmland. And we worked together to preserve 300 acres about, that would have been about 20 years ago. And for the last 2 years, I have been working to preserve another farm, which was about 88 acres. And today was the day we finalized that. So I'm really excited. It was a very long process, and I wanted to bring it up because, in my view, one of the best things you can do for the environment is preserve land for future generations. And I want to emphasize that it doesn't always have to happen by changing development rights or taking away or limiting development rights that belong to a private property owner. The very best way is for individuals who own property to find a way to make that commitment and to find a way to preserve the land themselves. And there are consultants out there who can help with that. There are many, many ways to do it, but ultimately the number one most important ingredient is the commitment and the foresight to imagine that outcome. And 2 years was not the whole process, but I was working on it intensely for 2 years. It's a very, very long process. And so I would encourage anyone who's out there, if you own property, to look into it. It can be, there aren't that many things in life worth owning. And preserving land has the effect of being able to keep something special. And so I wanted to say that for everyone in the audience, but also for the commission, for the younger student commissioners, because we haven't talked a lot about what makes Calabasas special. But in my view, the number one biggest environmental victory in Calabasas, Alex might disagree with me on this, but for me, it's the fact that we've been able to, that the city of Calabasas committed very early on to buying and preserving land. And so that is how we've gotten our over 3,000 acres of preserved land in Calabasas. And Alex, can you tell us how much acreage we have now?
I haven't been involved with the land acquisition. I just work on land that have already been acquired, like the creek restoration project. There were parcels that nobody knew that were owned by the city, so we could develop them and
well, all I can tell you is that it shows it in the land use plan for the city and our general plan. And last I checked, it was over 3,000 acres that we had preserved. And that is a commitment. If you aren't familiar with the project, that is a commitment that we made early on, and it is done through the use of tax that comes from our utility tax. And James Bazagian, Councilmember Bazagian, has been instrumental in that and is very knowledgeable about that. But it has the effect of doing all the things you want to do. So Zachary and Jessica, when you're talking about water and reducing hot spots in cities and preserving wild space for animals and all the things that make the environment stronger can be done simply through preservation. And so that's my shout out for today.
Thank you, Martha. Now on to you, Whitney.
Okay, so I actually do not know where my notes are at the moment. So I apologize for not being prepared in that way to share with you the interesting things that I had gathered from that webinar. But what I could tell you is that there are a lot of really interesting people working on what the future of sustainability should look like. And it was very easy to follow. It was offered in Spanish and in English. And If you want to check out what that roadmap looks like, you go to the Public Works, pw.lacounty.gov. Oops, something just happened to my computer. One second. And it was just a very thorough presentation. They covered everything from recycling to how businesses deal with food waste and how they deal with how we deal with e-waste, all the things that are part of what our attention needs. I don't know. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, because something I have a pop-up on my screen. Anyway, yeah, it was just very informative. They did give some links for youth programs that brought me to nowhere. So I was slightly discouraged with them about that they didn't provide the right links for, you know, anybody who was listening to go find out more information. But if we were ever interested in getting our youths involved with that type of thing, we could do that. I think if I would share that when I go to Chaparral and I talk to them about their green initiatives, I would. It's interesting to know that people are out there really looking at the future of how everything should look. We've had those people come last year and talk about the different plants they hope to build that will clean out trash, but those were all like visions of something that would be created. They're not there yet. So we're still far away from properly sorting all the food waste, trash waste, but people are working on it, so that's positive. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Whitney. So that brings us to introducing our guest speakers, which I know we'll all like listening to. So these two awesome women are from Climate Reality Project, which is a global project. And they are in the Woodland Hill, or the, which chapter? San Fernando Valley chapter. So now I'd like to welcome Diane Winan and Vivian Deutsch. Welcome.
Beth.
Thank you.
Hi.
Everybody, and I just want to thank Alex too for helping us set this up. And
We can hardly hear you. Can you speak to the phone?
yes, is this better? We'll get a little closer. It's better.
It's better, but not good enough.
Okay, so let me just volumed up as much as possible. I can try putting headsets on if you want me to give it another shot. Or is this okay? I can come closer. Is better?
It's better now. Yes.
Okay, and I'll talk louder. So my name's Diana Winan, and I am the chair of the San Fernando Valley chapter of Climate Reality. You see us wearing these green circle pins. Some of you may have seen Vice President Al Gore's documentary called An Inconvenient Truth 10 years ago, and then recently An Inconvenient Sequel. So we are part of Al Gore's Climate Reality Leadership Corps.
And I'm Vivian Deutsch. I live in Calabasas, and I am the outreach coordinator in our chapter. And happy to be here. I'm so encouraged by seeing actually the inside of the Environmental Commission. I've always been very proud of Calabasas's environmental aspects, and it's just really, really encouraging to get a little taste for what you all are doing. So we are going to do a very mini taste of one of the educational tools that we have. We do a lot of things, and Diana's going to tell you in a little bit some of the stuff that we are involved in, but one of the things we do is we go out into the community and we educate, and we have a presentation that we can get from Climate Reality, which has a vast amount of material in it, and you're going to get just a little teeny version of it. And since you all are people that are focused on the environment, I would imagine that not all of the information is going to be true, it's going to be new for you, but I hope that there are updates in there, and still it's a good thing to see, and hopefully there will be something that you can learn from. So I'm going to share my screen.
And while Vivian is setting that up, I just wanted to let you all know, we usually do the Climate Reality training as a 3-day on-site training. but because of how we're all meeting on Zoom, we recently did this as an online global training. We had 10,000 people in it. So if what we're doing and using the slides and expanding your own skill set to include some of these tools is of interest, let us know, because it is actually easy to apply to the training. And also, I just want to add that our group, our San Fernando Valley chapter, is probably just half people who have been trained in Climate Reality Project. The other half of the people are just people who want to do something for climate and make a difference. So change slide, please.
Uh-oh, it's not going.
Are you in the app? I think you might be in Zoom, Vivian. So make sure that you click in the app, and then you can use your forward arrow.
Where do I have to click?
Click on the slide itself. Not in the Zoom window. Let's see.
There.
All right, great.
Okay.
Go ahead and continue the bullets. So a little bit about us. We are very new, actually. There was an LA training in the summer of 2018. Next slide. So we started in December 2018. We meet monthly. We used to meet in person, and we really liked that. But since COVID, we've been online, and we've just had some really great focused work. We've been building our legislation committee. We focused in on zero waste and composting. We had, I don't know if you, Whitney, if you know of Gary Giro, if he may have spoken in the webinar you went to, but he is the Chief Sustainability Officer of LA County. So we held a sort of a town hall this summer and had him speak to us, and we all learned about the LA County Sustainability Plan. We also, in 2019, brought LA County into what's called the County Climate Coalition, meaning that we convinced them that they should take steps to support the actions or the recommended targets of the Paris Climate Accord. And so they signed into that, which has been great. We led a youth climate strike of San Fernando Valley in September 2019, and we produced a 24 hours of reality presentation at the Encino Lindley Theater last fall. So the thing is, our chapter is open to anyone, as I said. You do not have to have attended a climate reality training. If you want to get involved and take action, that's what we do. And we also try to educate ourselves as we go along. Next slide. So we asked 3 questions, and we asked, must we change, can we change, and will we change? So I'm going to get started with just sort of laying the groundwork here to answer the question, must we change? And change slides. So when you look at the Earth's atmosphere, you see it as this really thin, delicate layer, which is odd, because when we go outside and look up to the sky, it looks infinite, right? It looks like it goes on forever. Like we could do whatever we want in the air and it would just somehow sort of drift up, right? The truth is, if you put a car on its bottom end and drove up through that atmosphere, you would reach the end of the Earth's atmosphere in 8 minutes. So it's a much shorter distance than you realize. I mean, the fact is, and I apologize because I'm a single dog mom and I don't have anybody at the house that I can say, would you please take the dog to another room? So that's Sadie. So we are, Sadie girl, sorry, reality. So the truth is we are spewing 152 million tons of man-made global warming into this thin shell of atmosphere, not once a month or once a year, but every 24 hours, change, like an open sewer. And what happens is that, the sun comes through the atmosphere, and that's cool because the Earth absorbs the heat. We live in Southern California, we like the heat. And then some energy is radiated back out of the atmosphere. This is all good. The atmosphere captures some and keeps it in the Earth. But notice that blue atmosphere starts to get thick. And that's because as more and more CO2 gets put into our atmosphere, then it increases the trapping concept. So now we're trapping all that CO2 in our air. It can't release the way it was sort of, Earth was sort of designed to do. Next slide. We can say, well, where are some of the sources of the CO2? Where's it all coming from? And in this little animation, well, you can see a lot of them and recognize them. I mean, there's crop burning, oil production, flight, travel, industrial, agriculture, land transport. And then there's coal mines and industrial plants, etc. So you recognize these, right? Next slide. But the biggest problem, the largest source of global warming, is by far fossil fuels. And if you look at this chart, you see on the bottom are the dates. It starts at 1850, goes to sort of where we are. All of the warming has happened really in the past 100 years. There was sort of nothing, maybe a little bit in the early 1900s, and then bam, we're just on this upward rise as we have been developing more of an industrial society. Slide. Now, the burning of fossil fuels and the other things that have been contributing to the CO2 in our atmosphere has had an impact on the temperature of the Earth and the global surface temperature. Again, the years on the bottom of the chart, you can see how we're down in the blue zone, and then we take this upward rise into the red zone in the past 50 years, from about 1970 on to today. Now, if you look to the left and find that little
Question. Are we asking questions as we go, or are we waiting till the end?
I'm sorry, what?
At the end of your questions.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, if you look at around 1940, you see a little red blip. Well, what was going on historically during the early 1940s? World War II, right? And just imagine what was going on, doing a lot of bombing, a lot of schmutz, right? A lot of stuff going into our air and atmosphere. So we started to see that rise then, but then it went back down. It wasn't again until a lot of industrial and the development of fossil fuels in the late 70s and 80s started that we saw this sharp rise. Slide. What that has created, the global temperatures, is that it's created 19 of the 20 hottest years since 2001. The hottest have been the last 5 years, and 2016 being the hottest. Slide. And that's one thing to look at it on a chart, but it actually has a very personal impact on a lot of individuals. This woman is in Boston, is being, had heat stroke, is being taken into to the hospital by EMS. So it gets down to, it's not just what's happening someplace else. This is impacting us all in many, many ways. Right? Not only does it affect the surface temperature of the Earth, but it affects the ocean. And that leads to a lot of problems and issues, acidization. But if you take a look at this chart, you'll see that the 50% rise has happened just in the past 20 years. So again, we're seeing these really sharp inclines on these charts. So we're seeing, the ocean heat up much faster just in the past 20 years than it had in, the 50 years before. Right? And when the ocean heats up, it fuels these giant storms. Last week, we just had Hurricane Laura, and luckily it diminished some of its power before it hit the coast of Louisiana, but it was very strong, and we're seeing these monster storms. I think now I've heard today that there were 3 storms brewing in the Gulf of Mexico, so I'm not sure if they're going to collide or what. This is Hurricane Florence in 2018. A few years before that, we had Hurricane Sandy, and it created real devastation. Next slide. And another thing it does is because we have the heat, the hot water, and then it evaporates, and then because the temperature is hot, it holds all of this moisture in the air, and it creates what's called storm bombs. Now, you know, we don't have a lot of rain here, but in parts of the country that have rain, they see these, they're called climate events. And they're literally bombs, and sometimes the clouds just open up and go bam and just release all this water on. I mean, this looks like a Hollywood movie effect, doesn't it? I mean, it's crazy, but it is a real climate event. Next slide. And of course, the floods create things like this. Now, this happens to be India, but of course, we saw floods this past week in Lake Charles. And of course, I mentioned Hurricane Sandy, but these are happening more and more and more and more throughout the world, actually. Slide. Now, this is so interesting because the same extra heat that evaporates, we talked about from the ocean coming up, it causes the bigger downpours and floods. But that evaporation pulls even more moisture from the soil, and that causes longer and deeper droughts. And it changes the texture of the land, so the land cannot absorb the water. So we start getting out of balance where land can't absorb the rain in the way it's coming down, and too much of it is coming down to actually put to good use. Slide. And this is an example of land. I mean, this used to be covered in water. This is in Sao Paulo State, Brazil. And now it's just a dried up bed because of what Slide. And of course, with the heat come more fires. So if you look at the gold, that's the temperature, right? Because the temperature that is on the rise, we see it in spikes, but it's still on the rise. And then the red overlay is fires. And you see that they're just perfectly matched. So certainly in Southern California, we have unfortunately been the recipient of a lot of those fires. We know what that feels like. And when we get these hot temperatures, that's the first thing we think is that we might be having a fire somewhere close. Slide. Of course, the fires are happening all over northern North America, even in Canada, as far north as Alberta. But we've had the Woolsey fire close by, and a lot of them, some of you may have been impacted directly by the fires that went through Calabasas more recently. Slide. And it's this constant heat. This used to be a glacier that was covered in ice. And, you know, as of a few years ago, it's like, looks like a river. Our ice mass is declining. And of course, when the water from our Arctic circles are declining, then the ocean level starts to rise. Slide. And this next slide,
just where that green fence is, it's like,
that's Florida. And it's not because of a storm, it's because their tide rose. They're now having to build up their sidewalks so they can actually walk through their city. Next slide. All of this is having a huge impact. And we're going to look at it in two ways. One is by assets. So if you look at that first column on the left, that's Miami. And this is what Miami could lose in terms of assets. And if you look at the numbers on the left, that's $3.5 trillion within 50 years because of just what they'll lose by having to deal with the climate crisis. Slide. If we look at it another way, We say, okay, well, what are the top 10 cities at risk by population? The first one is Calcutta, and then Mumbai, and then down the line, Bangkok, and then Miami is down there, number 9. So when we look at it in different ways, it is impacting cities across the world. I'm going to pitch it over to Vivian. So take it away, Vivian.
So our food supply is being impacted. Humans developed agriculture 10,000 years ago, and it is suitable. The plants that we bred purposefully are for a particular climate. And we know that always drought and flooding has always caused famine or has caused a negative impact on the food supply. But what's happening now is as the average climate is changing, the months that are warm and the months that are less cold than they used to be are changing all over the world. This is impacting the food supply, not only in terms of the quantity, but in terms of the quality. The food is actually, if the climate is impacting it enough, is becoming less nutritious. And we know that in the Central Valley of California, and we know that in the internal part of the US, that farming is taking a big hit from all kinds of climate events, whether it's heat, drought, or flooding. So this is something that is a very severe impact and will only increase if it gets worse. Climate change is also a medical emergency. What's happening is as northern places are warming, parasites that were previously just in tropical areas are spreading, and they're bringing many tropical diseases to places where they've never been heard of before. And we can see that where we live. Now, we have West Nile virus. So here are some of the myriad ways that carbon is impacting the global economy. And I gave you some time to just sort of see the list. This slide, of course, was developed before the pandemic. And you could say, well, right now, the number one threat to the global economy is COVID. But COVID, sooner or later, is going to be mitigated. There will either be a virus, or there'll be herd immunity, or there will be cures. But at some point, the impact of COVID on the economy is going to lessen. But the impact of climate, if the climate gets worse than it is going to be very long-term. So it still is the number one long-term threat to the global economy. So the question, must we change? We certainly must. And our next question is, can we change? And the good news is there are solutions available right now. This is a graph of the increase in the use of wind energy. And you can see that it is increasing exponentially, and it's going to be off the chart, literally, soon. And this is actually a very good thing, because globally, wind could supply worldwide electricity consumption 40 times over. And the fastest growing job area in the United States at the moment is wind technician. So this sustainable energy actually is not only a good thing for the environment, it's very good for the economy. Here's a graph of solar installations, similar to the wind, zooming up. And the reason is simple, it's market driven, because the cost of solar is just shrinking hugely. And in the developing world, they're not even bothering with fossil fuel. Why should they? When they can just do something like this. I love this picture. You just put your solar panels up locally and you've got energy. So solar is definitely the future, and fossil fuel is not. And the market itself is driving that. And this is good news because every hour enough solar energy reaches the earth to fill the world's energy needs for a full year. The other thing is that all these companies and more are betting on electric vehicles, not gas-powered vehicles. And the fact is that within the next few years, the powertrain, which is what powers electric vehicles, is going to be cheaper than the internal combustion engine. So again, we are going to see a transition to electric transportation just on the basis of that it's going to make sense.
Oh my God.
Is that a question? Okay, I'm going to keep going. So can we change? Absolutely, we can. But will we change? And this is where what we call political will comes in. We all know in 2015, every nation in the world agreed to work together to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions by mid-century. Although our president has said that we are withdrawing from the Paris Agreement, legally, we're still in until the day after Election Day. So depending on who gets elected, we will either withdraw or we'll probably go straight back in. But the good news for this is that around the US, no matter what the federal government does, cities, counties, and states are committed to keeping the Paris Agreement accords. And the city of LA and the county of LA are formally committed to keeping the Paris standards. And our chapter actually was a liaison going to the county to ask them if they would formally sign on to do that. And they did immediately. And this is a picture of the fact that the masses of people around the world want action on the climate. This is from 2017, the People's Climate March in Washington. But we have all seen many street demonstrations, including the one that we had last September, the Youth Climate Strike, which our chapter sponsored doing it for the San Fernando Valley. And today on the news and on TV, you see specials about climate. When we talk about weather, climate change is mentioned. When the Weather Channel tells us about Hurricane Laura, they say, and it is related to climate change. So the awareness is very high. And polls show that the majority of people in America are concerned with climate change and do want something to be done about it. So many of the trends are going where we want them to go, but all of us have a role. We all need to use our voices, our votes, and our choices to fight the climate crisis because our world simply depends on it. And that is the end of our presentation. So I'm going to stop my screen share. I can find my cursor.
Thank you, thank you. And I wanted to announce that Julie Shai-Sobel, one of our commissioners, has also joined. Welcome, Julie. Now, if any commissioners have questions or comments, you have some time to speak.
I'll say something. Thank you for that presentation. It was very informative. Not it's both uplifting and upsetting.
Yeah.
But hopefully people all around are going to be able to come together and make changes. I know that when I go to small like Earth Day events, there's so many different people doing their thing to try to bring awareness to all the different parts of the environment that are suffering. And it's just so big and there's so many problems. And thank you for both being stewards for a better future.
Thank you, Whitney. Very nice.
Sure.
Yeah, I think climate reality is based on the same thing as your sustainability commission, which is that every single one of us has something that we can be doing.
You may have missed this at the beginning, but I just want to say that even though we are a climate reality chapter, we are open to anyone. You do not have to have the training. Our makeup is about 50 people who've been trained and 50 who haven't. It's just really a great group of people who want to be more active in taking climate action. We have a big legislative committee. We do educational segments every month that we teach ourselves as sort of a continuing education. And
So we're here because we want to reach out to other organizations and governments in our community, and we feel that we can perhaps help you in some of your work, and we want you to know that we're there so that in case there's something we can do to give you a hand.
Well, I would like to see this presentation available at the library in Founders Hall on a Saturday afternoon for the entire community to, like, none of this information is really new to me, like you had mentioned at the beginning, Diana, but it's new to a lot of people.
right.
And when they watch a presentation like that, which does not take a lot of their time, they then get the opportunity to go dive deeper into the information another time, or at least walk away understanding the magnitude and the severity of what's going on here.
So we did this presentation in the library for the senior center.
Okay.
Before COVID, we had a big audience and they were so engaged, and we had a very rich discussion afterwards where people traded different things that they're doing in their private lives.
Some have joined our chapter, actually, yeah. But by the way, and this is also to Zachary and Jennifer, Jessica. This is free. We do this because we're dedicated to this, and that's part of our mission, is to go and deliver these presentations. So if your school was interested in having us come and deliver this, or your group, Roots and Shoots, we'd be more than happy to do that. So, just let us know. I'll actually, in the chat, I'll put my contact information. So if anybody wants to just say, oh, I'd like for you guys to do that for this other group, don't hesitate to ask. That's one of our missions. So happy to do that.
And Jessica, if you have not seen The Inconvenient Truth, you got to see it.
Yeah, I have.
Okay, good.
I think this presentation could be very helpful at schools as well, like whether it's a middle school or high school, because I know that some students are very aware of this, but others don't realize how urgent the issue is.
I agree.
Yeah. So I have a question just around, you mentioned fossil fuels the last 100 years, which I think we would all agree, right? I mean, is the main driver.
Yes.
We're not agree, but I think that's a pretty commonly understood fact.
Yes.
I mean, and you mentioned mostly automobiles moving to electric or solar probably as being a big driver of the reduction. I mean, what's an inflection point? I mean, I don't think it's realistic to think that fossil fuels are going to go away tomorrow. Maybe we could flatten the curve, if you want to call it that, on the use of fossil fuels. So what, outside of someone, whether it be myself, a high school, a college, anyone saying, hey, instead of buying a car that has a combustible engine, you know, think about buying a Prius, right? I mean, what are things from a consumer standpoint that you've recommended that can actually make that impact, right? I mean, actionable things that they can do, he or she can do themselves.
Well, in our longer presentation, Phil, we add a few action item things. And one of the things we took up earlier this year is composting. We taught ourselves about zero waste, steps we can take to do that. So there are things like that, becoming vegan. I don't know, I'm vegan if anybody else, Jessica, good. And, you know, because we've also done, one of our educational segments was on regenerative farming. And Whitney, you talked about that. And I was just so fascinated by your work with the land, because when you work with the land in such a way that it can sequester carbon naturally, as it, you know, supports and nurtures plants, it is just like the perfect balance. And unfortunately, not as many farms are doing that here in the United States as could be. Other countries are taking that up a little bit more. We are faced, unfortunately, I don't know if you know this week, but there were two bills. One was a whole plastic thing, and another was also about sustainability, SB 54 and AB 1080. And these bills were just a few votes shy from getting out of committee and moving out onto the floor.
Oh, that's frustrating.
And they each died. We thought, we've been working really hard. Our legislation committee has been really out there pushing and working with it. And they died in committee, and we think because of lobbyists. So back to your point, Bill, that, you know, individually we can do certain things, but if it's stopping at the point of a bill not even getting out of committee because of lobbying pressure, that's one reason this past year we've been building up our legislative committee. We're going out and we are bringing people in from to speak to us from representatives' offices, and we're holding them to task. I mean, there's this whole sustainability thing that's supposed to go in January 1, 2021. And we've been talking to LA Sanitation. I know you guys have your own thing, but LA Sanitation, because I'm in Woodland Hills, and we don't have all of this, and Cal Recycle and all these places. They don't know how they're going to do it yet. But we're trying to approach it from different ways. We're telling ourselves what we can do individually, but we're also upping our game and our impact through legislative action by really holding to task those representatives who are not stepping up and doing the right thing.
I see that Martha has her hand raised too. Martha, did you want to speak?
Yes, hi Beth.
Hi.
Well,
Martha was the one with the land.
Vivian.
I said Whitney because I could see Whitney's face. I can't see your face, Martha. I apologize. It was you with the land.
That's okay. I've tried to fix it, but I haven't been able to. Vivian, I don't know how many people act as contrarian when you speak, but I'm going to act as the contrarian today. And I'm asking you, have you read Unstoppable, Every 1500 Years, Global Warming, updated and expanded New York Times bestseller by Singer and Avery? And have you read that book?
I have not read that book. Is that, what I can say that I know, look, we're environmentally interested, but we're not like PhDs and you know.
Well, that's okay. I'm not expecting you to be, but the reason I bring it up is
yes,
it was given to me by a scientist, and I've read some, but not all of it. And I was very impressed because we don't hear contrary views very often. We hear a lot of hysteria, and we see a lot of very convinced, very passionate advocates and political reformers. And one of the things that I've learned, my background is sustainability and urban planning and architecture, so I do have a lot of understanding and sensitivity of the issue, but I've become somewhat skeptical of the hysteria and the way in which it's being pushed into almost a propagandistic level of intensity. And the reason that I'm so interested in this book is because it is a very well written, very scientifically written book, and there are many others like it. And I think it would be very smart for the students and passionate advocates to see what the other people are saying in this field. And the reason that I bring it to your attention today is while I've been on this commission for over 2 years, I have seen things come through where we took it as fact. For instance, the sea turtle movement, on plastics in the ocean. That was a photograph of a sea turtle that went viral, and it caused every kid in elementary school to start drawing sea turtles to save the ocean, and oh my gosh, we're all going to die. And I want to get people to start looking at things more critically, because the next photo I saw was a sea turtle, a bird, and a fish, and they all had straws shoved down their noses. Well, so my sister, being a biologist, looked at the photo with me, and my husband, being an engineer, looked at the photos with me, which were from National Geographic, and we zoomed in, and come to find out the straw had been shoved in the sea turtle's nose. And oh, by the way, from the wildlife biologist, there's no way that you could put a straw into a sea turtle's nose. Not going to happen. It's biologically not possible. So I say it because that bit of propaganda pushed the movement to clean up the ocean and drove our plastic, anti-straw legislation. I did not stop the process knowing that. I watched it go along. I never said anything, because there's no harm in doing something that is, I didn't see the harm in it then to take that action and to make a big deal out of it, because cleaning up the oceans is a good thing. But here's why I bring it up and why I'm starting to think differently. Cleaning up the straws and the single-use plastic.
Wrapping up this presentation though, but maybe put the name of the book in the comments, and
okay,
we can come back.
Well, so let me just finish with one last sentence. So the danger in not questioning it is you can do something like the straw ban and miss the bigger picture, which is the real cause of why we have plastic in the ocean. So what this book does is doesn't say there isn't global warming. What it says is that it's due to a cycle that is a historical cycle, and there are actually parts of this cycle that are worse than what we're focusing on. And so that's why I would recommend it to everyone, and I'll try and put it in the record.
Yes, thank you.
Can I just quickly respond? Martha, thank you. I think everything should be questioned. I'm totally with you on that. And I will look into that book. I just want to say that my understanding is, and I haven't read the book, is that yes, there are cycles, but there's never been a time when the climate was changing as fast as it is now. I'll read the book and then we'll see. But so far, that is the understanding that I have about the issue of cycles versus what we're saying, which is that this could be something that is more drastic than a regular cycle.
Well, I do look forward to, if you do read the book, I'd like you to get back to us on it after you read the book and give us your opinion.
Great. Okay, thanks. Thanks for bringing it up.
And thank you, Diana and Vivian. This was lovely, and we look forward to our relationship with you. Thank you for offering your contact and for your support. So thank you very much.
Let us know if we can help,
Our
Roger.
pleasure. So we're going to leave the meeting at this point, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for having us. And good luck with everything you're doing. It's great.
Thank you. Bye. You too.
Bye.
All right, so that brings us to our agenda item number 3, our subcommittee reports. Does anyone have anything on that? I know I do. I have some stuff to report. So I will start us off. Raise your hand if you do. Martha and Zach, you both do. Your hands are raised. So I'll come to you guys after I do mine. So I'm working on a proposal with Fred Gaines' support to install raptor poles in our city parks. I have a meeting on Thursday with Kathy Shoemaker from the National Park Service. She's going to help advise me, and I'm going to try to get all the information we need and present it to you guys at our next meeting so that we can then pass it on to the City Council. I've connected with Christine Renault of Poison Free Calabasas, and we agreed to stay connected because for a while I knew Carolyn Turquino at Poison Free Agura and Kiana and Joel at Poison Free Calabasas, but we weren't connected with Christine and myself. So now we have that connection. And I've also reached out to the Ojai Raptor Center, and raptors are the solution. So I'm just gathering all sorts of information on this. And with that, Zach and I sent some postcards out to Governor Newsom. We asked our family and some friends to do that as well. So that helped. And now where we're at is this week, AB 1788 was approved. 23 said yes and 7 said no. So that's the legislature that's going to ban second generation rodenticide, which is the really bad one. Yeah, so it's exciting, but Governor Newsom still has to sign it in September to actually make it go into effect. So just, you know, it's really, I mean, that's a huge step. And with that, I'm sure you guys saw that B372 was a mountain lion that was found dead this week. It was in the newspaper everywhere. And he was, or she was the first in many years to have died directly from these anticoagulant rodenticides. So it's just like there and there. And we're hoping that something good's going to come from it. And then our subcommittee on rodenticide will get back to you guys with a proposal, a formal proposal by the next meeting. That's the plan. So now on to Zachary for your subcommittee report.
Yeah, well, I'm really happy about all that good information that you shared with us. I know last time when we were discussing raptor poles, at least over the summer, we were at we hit a wall because Calabasas is still currently using rodenticides and we didn't want to bring raptors in to just like have them die. So has that changed now because of the new bill?
Not necessarily because of the new bill, but we're not using rodenticides in city parks, and we've tried to balance the morals of that because we don't want to bring the natural predators back and just get them sick.
Sure.
But there's enough people that have been my advisors that have said in the parks, it seems safe and not immoral to do it. But I'm shocked and so pleased with your news about Calabasas High. That is huge.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Yeah. For those of you who weren't on the meeting when I announced it, I reached out to Julie Pesqueta, who's the director of maintenance at LVSD, and she said that Calabasas High School does use rodenticides, but if we install an owl box, they will get rid of all the rodenticides at Calabasas High School. So yes, great news. Great step forward. And then also just regarding the anticoagulant rodenticide subcommittee, I'd love to meet either, virtually or just, socially distance outside, whatever people are comfortable with, just be more involved in that subcommittee.
It's you, me, and Whitney, yeah?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, good.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else? Subcommittees? Okay, moving on to updates on the city's environmental programs by Alex.
Thank you for the opportunity. First and foremost, I wanted to update everyone on electronic waste collection events. You might have heard that on Wednesday, August 26, the City Council adopted a new policy not to sponsor collection events in Calabasas anymore. Since 2005, we have been sponsoring 2 events, one in Woodland Hills, which is very close to Calabasas at El Camino Shopping Center on the 3rd Saturday of each month, and on the 1st Saturday in Albertson Shopping Center. Traditionally, we used to collect any kind of device and electronics, anything that worked with electricity. But recently, due to changing market in recycling and the fact that China has stopped accepting plastics and many electronics, our recycling contractor could not dispose of many of the items that they collected. They have a full warehouse of electronics with a high plastic content that they cannot dispose of. They have to pay for them. So they stopped accepting many electronics, and that generated a lot of complaint from our residents and businesses. They sent complaints to city council members, to me, to the city manager. So this final decision by the city council was that we are not going to sponsor any more e-waste collection. It's not really e-waste anymore. It's a collection event for high-tech devices only. So people were unhappy. They had to go back home with a lot of leftover electronics that they didn't know what to do. So from this point on, we encourage everyone to contact Waste Management, your waste hauler, at 1-800-675-1171, the customer service number, and request a bulky item pickup for any electronics. So that's the first update I would like to provide. The second update is about our recycling drawing contest. We have started the campaign, send the flyer and the information to all elementary and middle schools in Calabasas, to all teachers. But this year it's going to be a different pattern because of the COVID-19. Many teachers are hesitant to request hard copies from students, and they don't want to deal with hard copies. So we are going to set up a new procedure, probably with the Dropbox, so teachers can collect all entries electronically, gather them, sort them, and review them, and then drop them off in the Dropbox for the city to review. That's going to be a challenge for our commissioners, because in the past, as some of you remember, as of last year, we used to have a subcommittee to screen the drawings and probably bring the numbers down to manageable number of around 100 to 150 entries out of 1,500. Now this year, managing it electronically is going to be a challenge. So I would like to propose that we form a subcommittee for the entries of the recycling drawing contest. Let's brainstorm on how you guys are going to review them, how you want to screen them, and after the screening, how you want to select the 14 drawings. So if anybody wants to volunteer to be a part of the subcommittee, definitely 2 voting members and both student members, and any number of community activists can join the subcommittee, and let's brainstorm how you want to do it this year. The drawings are due on October 23rd, but we need to come up with a procedure that is workable, and we can probably mock it a few times, do a mock practice, and be prepared by October 23rd to go ahead and review the entries and come up with a plan to select the 14 final drawings. We are going to send them to the print shop immediately after the November 10th meeting. So we want to be prepared and don't delay it, because the print shop would take another 3 to 4 weeks to print the calendars, and we want to be just on the schedule as every other year in the past 15 years. So with that, I will go to the next item before we discuss the subcommittee. We are working internally with our consultant to design the Las Virgenes Road Green Street project. I have explained that in many meetings in the past, that we want to improve the road, especially the west side of the road, which is a parking on the dirt. So whenever it rains and people come to remove their car, they bring a lot of dirt to the street. So we are designing the Green Street project with the concept of having a trail, a walking trail from Mount Calabasas all the way to the road terminus with paved parking and biosphere. So we are working on that, and as soon as the drawings are ready, I'm going to present it to the commission for review and comment. Lastly, for the next committee, for the next commission meeting for November 10th, I was approached by one of our very early student members. Her name is Rebecca Peters. She was a student member in 2006 and 2007. Then she graduated from Calabasas High School, went to university, went to different countries. She graduated from, she earned her bachelor's degree and then master's degree. And the email that I received from Rebecca was from England, from UK. She is in Oxford University, getting ready to defend her PhD dissertation. Her topic is pollution in one of the Bangladesh rivers. She is also going to apply for a postdoctorate degree. She volunteered to share her experience as a young lady, as a young environmental activist, and a former member, a student member of the Calabasas Environmental Commission in our November 10th meeting. The challenge is that the time difference. 7 p.m. here is going to be 3 a.m. in London, or in Oxford, actually. So she had a question how she wants to make that presentation, if it's going to be that late for her. And the question is whether the commission wants to meet sometimes in the morning, just on November 10th, so we can accommodate Rebecca, or should she just record it and we broadcast it and then leave the questions for later. So these are the two items that I would like to bring to your attention and discuss it before I wrap up. One is about forming a subcommittee to establish a new procedure to review entries for the recycling drawing contest before the deadline, and the second about Rebecca's presentation. With that, I conclude my presentation.
Thank you, Alex.
It's all yours.
All right, so Jessica had her hand raised when you were mentioning the drawing contest. So let's go back to Jessica and see what you wanted to say.
I was actually going to comment on something else. I was going to ask if I could join the subcommittee for the rodenticides.
Why, yes, you can. Thank you. I will write your name down. Thank you. And then Martha, your hand is raised. Martha? Okay, I'll go to Whitney now because her hand is literally raised.
Martha needs to self-unmute.
Sorry, the host had muted me, but I'm now unmuted. I just was going to make the motion that we move to meet earlier in the day in November, as Alex had suggested, because I think that would be reasonable for me. But does it have to be in the morning, or could it be after school hours, like 3:30 for the parents with children?
It seems that the best time for Rebecca would be for that we meet in the morning, but it's a school time for our student members. So we need to see the availability of students as well as all commissioners.
I also was thinking, is it possible that we meet with her sometime off the record and then air our meeting during the Public Environmental Commission meeting? Is that a possibility?
Well, if you want it to be an official meeting, we have to announce that our meeting hour has changed, meeting time has changed, and just announce the new time.
Okay. Whitney?
I'm very interested in hearing what she has to say, but I don't think it's appropriate for Zachary or Jessica to have to miss any class for that. So personally, I'm in a class that includes students from all over the world, and one of my classes on Sunday is at 1 p.m. and on Wednesdays it's at 8 a.m. and the different people from all over the globe will pop into the chat and they'll say it's 2 o'clock in the morning, it's 11 p.m. This is an opportunity for her. She could wake up, stretch, have some coffee, and teach us something. It's not that big a deal, and it works for how our schedule works. I think to like change all these schedules is a lot to ask, but I also would be willing to listen to it if she recorded it, because I am very curious to hear what she has to say.
Right, so Martha made a motion to change the meeting. Does anyone second that motion?
My motion was to change it till earlier in the day at about 3:30 or 4, because I anticipated that that would be a good time for her. Since 7 o'clock is 3 in the morning for her, it should be closer to a normal time for her, but 4 o'clock our time.
So you're making a motion to move our meeting to 4 p.m.?
Correct.
Okay, does anyone second that motion? I don't know what to do in that case, Alex.
Well, if the motion didn't carry, I'll just wait to hear what Alex's suggestion is. Maybe you could send around choices by email. Is that possible, Alex?
Right.
I will just let her know that we cannot change our meeting time, so she has to adjust her time and join us at 7.
Right.
If she can, yeah.
Or record it.
Or record it, yes.
Yeah, it would be nice for her to have some dialogue with us. That would be great. We could even watch it before and respond to her with questions perhaps and come back.
Let me talk to her and get back to you on that. I will email everyone about the results of my communication.
Thank you, Alex. And then for the sub, Philip, did you raise
Yeah,
your
I was gonna, for that, I'm happy to be flexible. I don't feel it's appropriate to commit to a different time without knowing what, my own personal or professional schedule is going to be like on that day. So if there's availability that I could share, I could probably closer to that date, be fair and say I can or can't. And then I'm happy to participate in the subcommittee for the recycling drawing.
Amazing, because you did that last year.
Right.
So Philip is self-nominating himself for the subcommittee. Anyone else interested in the drawing contest subcommittee? With
I'm
Philip.
just thinking it might be a team effort just because it's a new way of going
I
about
don't
it.
think we can have more than 2 commissioners, though.
Well, could we divide it like, depending on how many grades participate? Say Philip gets 2nd and 3rd, and Jessica and, can we break it up that way so that there's 2 of
I
us?
think we could probably make a motion to judge it differently this year and then vote on that.
And then I'm assuming if say it was you and I with 2 grades or 3 grades, we would review the Dropbox, and everybody would, whoever, just divide the Dropbox by grades to the people is one idea.
Sure. You make that as a motion, maybe?
I think that we want to leave the discussion on procedure to the subcommittee. So if you have ideas, let's share it in the subcommittee so we can establish a new procedure.
Okay, great. Any other commissioners want to help Zach as a commissioner, not student commissioner?
Martha has raised hand. Martha?
I was raising my hand just because I thought we're almost done, and I wanted to mention that I think November's meeting is my last meeting. So that's the reason I'm not volunteering for the subcommittees.
Okay. Whitney, your hand was up for a second?
Yeah, I'll help on that subcommittee.
Amazing. Okay.
Is the Pumpkin Festival not happening? I'm assuming that it's not.
No, it's canceled.
Yeah.
Okay.
The same thing is true with the forum. Environmental forum is not going to happen next year.
I'm happy to help on something if you need me to between now and November. I just don't know if I would be able to follow through on the other end, that's all.
Well, if anything comes to you with a good way to judge these digitally, just let that committee know. I think that's the hot topic right now. So with that,
I'd also like to help with the recycling drawing contest. So I'm not sure if you already got my name.
I had your name. I did. Thank you. I have for the recycling, Philip, Zach, Whitney. Okay.
Please keep in mind, because I have to facilitate the process, both me and my assistant will be joining the subcommittee to discuss the details, because we have to communicate with our media department to make everything happen. So when you are going to meet, please let me know so we can also join in.
Okay, Philip and Whitney and Alex, you'll loop Alex. Okay.
All right.
So with that, it concludes our Environmental Commission meeting for September 1st. Thank you, everyone.